firefighter rescued 3 children from a burning building. His face was completely burned, and his life changed forever. 20 years later, those children became successful adults. But none of them remembered their hero until they met him by chance in the hospital. This is the forgotten story of a hero.
On a cold December evening 20 years ago, firefighter Michael Torres was finishing his shift at Station 42. He was 32 years old, strong and healthy, with a young wife and a baby daughter at home. Michael loved his job. He had always wanted to help people, to make a difference, to be someone who ran toward danger when others ran away. At 11:47 p.m., the alarm sounded. A residential apartment building was on fire in the downtown area. Multiple families lived in the building, and reports indicated people were trapped inside. Michael and his crew rushed to the scene. When they arrived, the 4-story building was engulfed in flames. Smoke poured from windows. People on the street were screaming that children were still inside. A mother stood on the sidewalk hysterical, crying that her 3 children, ages 4, 6, and 8, were trapped on the 3rd floor. She had escaped with her baby but could not reach her other children. Michael's captain assessed the situation. The fire was intense, the building structure was compromised, and the stairwell was completely blocked by flames. "It is too dangerous," the captain said. "We need to wait for backup and better equipment." But Michael heard the children screaming from the 3rd floor window. He could see their terrified faces through the smoke. He knew that by the time backup arrived, those children would be dead. Without hesitation, Michael grabbed his gear and ran into the burning building. His captain yelled for him to stop, but Michael did not listen. 3 children were dying, and he had the skills and equipment to save them. That was all that mattered. Michael fought his way through the burning building. The heat was unbearable even through his protective gear. Smoke filled his lungs despite his mask. He could hear the building groaning. It was going to collapse soon. He reached the 3rd floor and found the apartment where the children were trapped. The door was hot to the touch. Michael kicked it open and saw 3 children huddled together in the corner, coughing and crying. 8-year-old Sarah held her younger siblings, 6-year-old Tommy and 4-year-old Emma, trying to protect them. "I am a firefighter," Michael shouted over the roar of flames. "I am here to save you. Come to me now." Sarah looked at him with terrified eyes but did not move. She was frozen with fear. Michael had no time to coax her. He ran to the children, grabbed Emma under one arm and Tommy under the other. "Sarah, hold on to my back," he commanded. Sarah wrapped her arms around Michael's neck. With all 3 children secured, Michael turned toward the door. But the hallway was now completely engulfed in flames. The way they had come in was blocked. Michael made a split-second decision. He ran to the window, broke it open with his axe, and looked down. His crew had positioned a ladder, but it was not quite high enough to reach the 3rd floor safely. Michael would have to drop the children down to the safety net below. One by one, Michael carefully lowered the children out the window, speaking calmly to reassure them despite the chaos around them. "You are safe now. I have got you." Emma went first, then Tommy, then Sarah. Each child dropped safely into the net held by firefighters below. As Michael prepared to climb down himself, a massive explosion rocked the building. The fire had reached a gas line. The blast threw Michael backward, directly into the flames. His protective gear caught fire, and most critically, his face mask was ripped away. Michael woke up 3 days later in the hospital burn unit. The pain was excruciating. His entire body hurt, but nothing compared to the pain in his face. His wife Maria was beside him, her eyes red from crying. When Michael tried to speak, she gently stopped him. "Do not talk yet," she whispered. "Just rest." Michael reached up to touch his face and felt thick bandages covering most of it. Maria caught his hand gently. "Michael, you saved those 3 children. They are all alive and safe because of you. You are a hero. But the look in her eyes told him something terrible had happened. Over the following weeks, as Michael healed, he learned the full extent of his injuries. The explosion and flames had caused third-degree burns across 60% of his body, including his face, neck, chest, and arms. The doctors had performed multiple skin graft surgeries, but they explained that Michael's face would be permanently and severely scarred. The burns on your face were the worst, the doctor told him gently. We did everything we could, but the scarring is extensive. There will be significant disfigurement. I am sorry. When the bandages finally came off, Michael looked in a mirror for the first time. What he saw devastated him. The right side of his face was melted and twisted. His ear was partially gone. His skin was a patchwork of grafts and scar tissue. He looked like a monster from a horror movie. Michael broke down crying. Maria held him and told him he was still beautiful to her, still her husband, still the father of their daughter. But Michael could see the shock in her eyes, the involuntary flinch when she first saw his face. The physical therapy was brutal. Michael had to relearn how to move his arms properly due to the burn scarring. His hands had been severely damaged, requiring multiple reconstructive surgeries. He would never have full range of motion again. Worse than the physical pain was the psychological trauma. Michael had nightmares about the fire. He could not be near heat without panicking. The smell of smoke triggered severe anxiety attacks. After 6 months of surgeries and rehabilitation, Michael was released from medical care. He received a commendation for bravery and a medical retirement from the fire department. At age 33, his career as a firefighter was over. The mother of the 3 children visited him once in the hospital with her children. She cried and thanked him for saving her babies. 8-year-old Sarah gave him a card she had drawn with the words, "Thank you for saving us." 6-year-old Tommy and 4-year-old Emma hid behind their mother, frightened by Michael's appearance. That was the last time Michael saw them. Over the next few years, Michael struggled to adjust to his new life. His daughter Isabella, who had been just 2 years old when the fire happened, grew up knowing her father only with his scarred face. She loved him unconditionally, but Michael saw how other children stared at him when he picked Isabella up from school. He saw parents pull their children away from him, whispering warnings about the scary man. Maria stayed with Michael through everything, but the strain on their marriage was enormous. Michael's PTSD and depression made him withdrawn and irritable. He felt like a burden to his family. He felt ugly and useless. Michael tried to find work, but his appearance made it difficult. People would interview him over the phone and seem interested, but when they met him in person, he could see the shock and discomfort in their eyes. Most jobs went to other candidates. Eventually, Michael found work as a night security guard at a hospital, a job where he could work alone, where his appearance would not disturb people as much. It was a far cry from being a firefighter, but it paid enough to support his family. Michael's social life disappeared. Friends from the fire department visited less and less often. He could see that his scarred face made people uncomfortable. Eventually, Michael stopped going out in public except when necessary. He avoided mirrors. He avoided crowds. He became isolated and lonely. The only bright spot in Michael's life was his daughter Isabella. She was now 8 years old, the same age Sarah had been when Michael saved her from the fire. Isabella never treated her father like he was different or scary. She would hug him, kiss his scarred face, and tell him he was the best daddy in the world. "Daddy, why do you look different than other daddies?" Isabella asked him once when she was 6. Michael had prepared for this question. "Because I was a firefighter and I saved 3 children from a burning building. The fire hurt me, but those children are alive because of what I did. These scars are the price I paid to save their lives." Isabella thought about this seriously. "Then your scars are beautiful, Daddy. Because they mean you are a hero." Those words meant more to Michael than any medal or commendation ever could. 20 years passed. Michael was now 52 years old. His daughter Isabella was 22 and in medical school. She wanted to become a doctor to help people, inspired by her father's heroism and his struggles with the medical system. Michael still worked as a night security guard at the same hospital. His body ached from old injuries. His scarred face had aged along with the rest of him, the scar tissue becoming more pronounced with time. He had long ago accepted that he would never look normal again. Maria had stayed with him through everything, though their marriage had become more of a companionship than a romance. Michael knew he had been difficult to live with, his PTSD, his depression, his isolation. But Maria had never abandoned him, and for that he was eternally grateful. Michael rarely thought about the 3 children he had saved anymore. They would be adults now. Sarah would be 28, Tommy 26, Emma 24. Michael wondered sometimes what had become of them. Were they happy? Successful? Did they remember him at all? He had no way of knowing that all 3 of them lived in the same city, successful professionals who occasionally mentioned they had been saved from a fire as children but could barely remember the details. The trauma of that night had faded with childhood memories. Their mother had never kept in contact with Michael after that single hospital visit. One night, Michael was doing his security rounds at the hospital when he heard a commotion in the emergency room. A woman had been brought in with severe injuries from a car accident. The ER was crowded, and Michael heard someone calling for more staff. Michael approached to see if he could help clear space or assist in any way. As he drew closer, he overheard 3 young adults speaking urgently to the medical staff about the patient. "That is our mother," a young woman in her late 20s was saying frantically. "Please, you have to save her. She is all we have." Michael froze. Something about the woman's voice, something about the family resemblance between the 3 siblings, triggered a memory. Could it be? The young woman turned and accidentally bumped into Michael. She started to apologize, then stopped mid-sentence as she looked at his face. For a moment, there was the familiar reaction of shock at his scars. But then something else flickered in her eyes, a distant memory, like recognizing a song you had not heard in decades. "I am sorry," Sarah said automatically to Michael, still staring at his face with that confused expression. "I did not mean to. Have we met before? You seem familiar somehow." Michael's heart was pounding. He looked at the 3 siblings together and he knew. This was them. Sarah, Tommy, and Emma, the children he had saved 20 years ago. They had grown into adults, successful and healthy, standing in this hospital because their mother had been in an accident. 20 years ago, Michael said quietly, his voice rough with emotion, there was a fire in an apartment building downtown. 3 children were trapped on the 3rd floor. Do you remember? Sarah's eyes widened. Tommy and Emma, who had been focused on their mother, turned to look at Michael. Recognition slowly dawned on all 3 faces as they stared at the scarred man before them. "The firefighter," Sarah whispered. "You were the firefighter who saved us." "My name is Michael Torres," he said simply. Emma gasped and put her hand to her mouth. "I remember you. I was so little, but I remember strong arms grabbing me. I remember feeling safe even though everything was terrifying. That was you." Tommy stared at Michael's scars with dawning realization. "Your face, the explosion. Mom told us years ago that the firefighter who saved us was badly injured. We never knew what happened to you. We never. You never tried to find me," Michael finished gently, without accusation. "That is okay. You were children. You moved on with your lives. That is what you were supposed to do." Sarah's eyes filled with tears. "We should have found you. We should have thanked you properly. We should have known your name, known what you sacrificed for us. Instead, we just forgot. We went on with our lives and barely thought about the man who gave up everything to save us." "You did not forget," Michael said. "You lived. You became successful adults. You are here fighting for your mother because family matters to you. That is all I ever wanted, for you three to have lives worth living. Seeing you now, healthy and grown and caring for each other, that is all the thanks I need. The emergency room doctor approached the siblings. Your mother is stable. She is going to need surgery, but she should survive. You can see her briefly before we take her to the OR. The three siblings looked torn between going to their mother and staying with Michael. Sarah made a decision. Please, she said to Michael, do not leave. After we see our mother, we need to talk to you. We owe you so much more than we can ever repay. I will be here, Michael promised. I work the night shift. I am not going anywhere. 3 hours later, after their mother was safely in surgery with a good prognosis, Sarah, Tommy, and Emma found Michael in the hospital cafeteria during his break. He was sitting alone in a corner, drinking coffee, when the three of them approached. May we sit with you? Sarah asked. Of course, Michael said, gesturing to the empty chairs. For a moment, no one spoke. Then Emma broke the silence. Tell us what happened to you. After the fire. We need to know. Michael took a deep breath and told them everything. The explosion that ripped his mask away. The 60% burns across his body. The multiple surgeries. The permanent disfigurement. The end of his firefighting career at age 33. The PTSD and depression. The difficulty finding work because of his appearance. The isolation and loneliness. The strain on his marriage. But I also want you to know, Michael said firmly, I do not regret it. Not for a second. I saved 3 children. You 3 went on to live full lives. That was worth any price I paid. Tommy wiped his eyes. I became a physical therapist. I help people recover from injuries and trauma. I work with burn victims sometimes. Every time I see someone suffering from burns, I think about the fire we survived, but I never really thought about you, the man who made my career possible by giving me a life to live. Emma spoke next. I became a social worker. I work with children who have experienced trauma. I help them process fear and loss. My entire career exists because you gave me a life. I survived trauma because of you, and now I help other children survive theirs. But I never thanked you. I never even knew your name. Sarah's voice broke as she spoke. I am a corporate executive. I have a husband and 2 children. I have a beautiful life. Every morning when I kiss my children goodbye, I am doing something I could never have done if you had not run into that building. My children exist because you saved me. And I never once tried to find you, never said thank you, never acknowledged the sacrifice you made. Stop, Michael said gently but firmly. All 3 of you, stop feeling guilty. You were children. Children forget. Children move on. That is what children are supposed to do. The fact that all 3 of you are successful, that you help others, that you have built good lives, that is the thank you. That is the proof that my sacrifice mattered. But look what it cost you, Sarah said, tears streaming down her face. Your face, your career, your health, your life. You paid an enormous price, and we did not even remember you. Michael reached across the table and took Sarah's hand. His scarred, damaged hand held hers firmly. Listen to me carefully. I was a firefighter. I ran into burning buildings for a living. That was my calling, my purpose. I knew the risks. I accepted them. When I saw 3 children trapped in that window, I had a choice, play it safe and let you die, or risk everything to save you. I chose to save you. That was not a sacrifice, that was me fulfilling my purpose. We want to do something for you, Tommy said. We need to do something. What you lost because of us dash. Not because of you, Michael interrupted. Despite what I lost, you lived. That is what matters. Please, Emma said. Let us help you somehow. You work as a security guard making minimum wage. You sacrificed your career. We all have resources now. Let us give back even a fraction of what you gave us." Michael was quiet for a moment. Then he said something that surprised them. "There is something you could do, but not for me. For others." "Anything," Sarah said. "There are firefighters who are injured in the line of duty every year," Michael explained. "Many of them face the same challenges I did: medical bills, lost careers, PTSD, depression, difficulty adjusting to civilian life. There is not enough support for them. If you want to help me, help them." The three siblings looked at each other, and Sarah nodded. "We will start a foundation. The Michael Torres Foundation for Injured First Responders. We will fund medical care, mental health services, job retraining, whatever they need. We will make sure no firefighter or first responder faces what you faced alone." And, Tommy added, "I will volunteer as a physical therapist. I will provide free rehabilitation services to injured first responders. It is the least I can do." "I will provide counseling services," Emma said. "PTSD treatment, family therapy, whatever is needed. Free of charge." Michael felt tears in his eyes. This was more than he had ever hoped for. His sacrifice would multiply, helping not just these three people but countless first responders for years to come. "There is one more thing," Sarah said. "Your daughter. You said she is in medical school." "Yes, Isabella. She is in her 3rd year. It is expensive, and we struggle to pay her tuition even with loans and scholarships." "Not anymore," Sarah said firmly. "We will fund her complete medical education. Everything. It is the least we can do for the daughter of the man who gave us our lives." Michael broke down crying. These three people he had saved as children were now saving him and his daughter in return. The debt he insisted did not exist was being repaid in ways he never imagined. 6 months later, the Michael Torres Foundation officially launched with a major fundraising gala. Sarah, Tommy, and Emma had worked tirelessly to establish the organization, recruit board members, secure donations, and create programs. Michael was asked to be the keynote speaker. He stood on stage in a suit Sarah had bought him, facing hundreds of people, firefighters, first responders, donors, city officials. His scarred face was visible to everyone under the bright lights. For the first time in 20 years, Michael did not feel ashamed of his scars. 20 years ago, Michael began, "I ran into a burning building to save 3 children. I knew the risks. I knew I might not come out. But those 3 children were innocent lives worth saving, and I was a firefighter. Saving people was my job, my calling, my purpose. The fire left me scarred and disabled. I lost my career. I struggled for 20 years with pain, with PTSD, with isolation. There were days I wondered if my sacrifice had been worth it. Then 6 months ago, I met those 3 children again, now adults with careers and families of their own. And I realized, my sacrifice was worth everything. Those 3 people are alive. They help others every day. Their children exist because I saved them. That is a legacy worth any price. But they taught me something else. They taught me that heroism is not just the act of saving someone. Heroism is also what you do with the life you were given." Sarah, Tommy, and Emma could have simply been grateful and moved on. Instead, they created this foundation to multiply my sacrifice, to help other first responders who face what I faced. That is the true meaning of heroism, taking what you have been given, even if it came at great cost to someone else, and using it to help others. We are all here tonight because we understand that first responders sacrifice for us every day. Now it is time for us to sacrifice for them. The applause was thunderous. Michael saw firefighters in the audience standing, many with tears in their eyes. He saw Sarah, Tommy, and Emma in the front row, crying and clapping. After the speech, Dozens of firefighters and first responders approached Michael to shake his hand, to thank him for telling his story, to share their own struggles. For the first time in 20 years, Michael felt truly seen, not as a scarred victim, but as a hero whose sacrifice had meaning. 3 years after the foundation launched, Michael's life had transformed completely. He no longer worked as a security guard. Sarah had hired him as the foundation's director of first responder relations. His job was to connect with injured first responders, share his story, and help them access the foundation's resources. Michael discovered he was exceptionally good at this work. When he sat across from a firefighter who had been injured and felt hopeless, Michael could say with complete authenticity, "I understand what you are going through. I have been where you are. And I am here to tell you that your life is not over. It is just different now. Let me help you." His scarred face, which had been a source of shame for 20 years, became his greatest asset. It was proof that he understood their pain, that he had survived what they were surviving, that recovery was possible. The foundation had helped over 300 injured first responders in 3 years. They provided medical care, mental health services, job training, financial assistance, and most importantly, community. Michael organized monthly support groups where injured first responders could share their struggles with people who truly understood. Isabella graduated from medical school and began her residency in emergency medicine. At her graduation, she gave a speech thanking her father for inspiring her career. "My father taught me that heroes are not people without scars," she said. "Heroes are people who bear their scars with dignity and use their pain to help others. That is the kind of doctor I want to be." Sarah's company became one of the foundation's largest corporate donors. Tommy's physical therapy practice now dedicated half of its time to pro bono work with injured first responders. Emma's counseling center specialized in PTSD treatment for firefighters and police officers. The 3 siblings had become Michael's closest friends. They had dinner together monthly, their families had become intertwined, and their children called Michael Uncle Mike. The children asked about his scars, and Michael told them honestly, "I got these scars saving your parents' lives when they were children. These scars remind me that some things are worth any sacrifice." Michael's relationship with Maria had healed as well. Seeing her husband find purpose and community again, watching him transform from isolated and depressed to fulfilled and connected, had rekindled their love. They renewed their wedding vows on their 30th anniversary, and Maria told him, "I married a hero twice, once before the fire, and once after. The man you became through suffering is even more beautiful than the man you were before." On the 20th anniversary of the fire, the city honored Michael with a ceremony at the site where the apartment building had stood. A small park had been built there, and the city unveiled a memorial statue, a firefighter carrying 3 children to safety. Sarah, Tommy, and Emma spoke at the ceremony, sharing how Michael's sacrifice had given them their lives and inspired them to help others. Hundreds of people attended, including dozens of first responders Michael had helped through the foundation. Michael stood before the crowd and said, "20 years ago, I ran into a burning building and my life changed forever. I lost my face, my career, and years of happiness. But I gained something more valuable. I learned what it truly means to sacrifice for others, and I learned that sacrifice multiplies when those who benefit pay it forward. I thought my heroism ended the night of the fire. But these 3 people taught me that true heroism is ongoing. It is not just the single act of courage, it is every day choosing to live with purpose, to help others, to turn suffering into service. My scars tell a story. They tell the story of 3 children saved. But they also tell the story of hundreds of first responders helped, of a community built, of sacrifice that multiplied beyond anything I could have imagined." As the ceremony ended, a young firefighter approached Michael. He was about 25 years old, with burn scars on his neck and hands. "Mr. Torres, I was injured in a fire 6 months ago. Your foundation helped me get counseling and job training. I just wanted to say thank you. You saved my life in a different way than you saved those children, but you saved it just the same." Michael embraced the young firefighter. "Pay it forward," he said. Help someone else when you can. That is how heroism multiplies. As Michael stood in the park surrounded by the people whose lives he had touched, Sarah, Tommy, Emma, their families, hundreds of first responders, his wife and daughter, he looked at the statue of the firefighter carrying 3 children. That statue showed the moment of his sacrifice. But the real legacy was not frozen in bronze. The real legacy was alive, in every person the foundation had helped, in every first responder who had found hope through his story, in the 3 adults who had turned their survival into service, in the children and grandchildren who existed because he had run into that building 20 years ago. Michael's scars had not disappeared. They never would. But they no longer represented loss. They represented love, sacrifice, purpose, and a legacy that would outlive him. The scarred hero had not been forgotten after all. He had been transformed into something greater, a symbol of heroism that multiplies, of sacrifice that creates ripples of good across generations, of the truth that our wounds can become our greatest gifts when we choose to use them to help others. The story of Michael Torres teaches us profound truths about heroism, sacrifice, gratitude, and the multiplication of good that can come from a single act of courage. First, it teaches us that true heroism often comes at great personal cost. Michael did not just risk his life, he permanently sacrificed his appearance, his career, his health, and years of happiness to save 3 children. Real heroes do not emerge unscathed from their acts of courage. This story challenges the Hollywood notion of heroism where the hero saves everyone and walks away victorious. Real heroism often involves permanent loss. Second, it teaches us about the invisible heroes among us. For 20 years, Michael worked as a security guard, his heroic sacrifice unknown to the people around him. How many people in our lives have made enormous sacrifices that we know nothing about? How many quiet heroes walk among us with scars, visible or invisible, that tell stories of courage we have never heard? Third, it teaches us that it is human to forget our benefactors, but it is noble to remember them. Sarah, Tommy, and Emma forgot Michael not because they were ungrateful people, but because they were children who moved on with life. We all benefit from sacrifices others have made for us, parents, teachers, mentors, strangers who helped us at critical moments. How many of them have we forgotten? This story reminds us to actively remember and thank those who changed our lives. Fourth, it teaches us that true sacrifice does not demand repayment. Michael never sought recognition or compensation for what he did. He saved those children because it was right, because it was his calling, because their lives had value. He did not calculate the cost to himself. This is the nature of authentic heroism, it gives without counting the cost and without demanding gratitude. Fifth, it teaches us that the wounds we receive in service to others can become sources of meaning and purpose. Michael's scars, which initially represented loss and suffering, ultimately became his greatest asset in helping other injured first responders. His pain gave him credibility, empathy, and purpose he never could have had otherwise. Our wounds, when used to help others, can become our gifts. Sixth, it teaches us about the multiplication of good. Michael saved 3 children. Those 3 children grew up to create a foundation that has helped hundreds of first responders. Those first responders will help others, who will help others, creating ripples of good that extend far beyond Michael's original act. One act of heroism, multiplied by gratitude and purpose, can transform entire communities. Seventh, it teaches us that suffering can be redemptive when it is used for a higher purpose. Michael suffered enormously from his injuries, but his suffering was not meaningless. It saved 3 lives and eventually helped hundreds more. This does not erase the pain or make the sacrifice easy, but it gives suffering meaning, which is what humans need most when we face hardship. Finally, it teaches us that appearance and status do not determine worth. Michael went from respected firefighter to disfigured security guard to honored foundation director. His worth never changed, only circumstances and recognition changed. Every person we see has inherent dignity and value regardless of their appearance or position. The scarred security guard might be a hero. The homeless person might be a veteran who sacrificed for our freedom. We must treat everyone with respect because we never know what sacrifices they have made. The question this story asks us is challenging. Who in your life has made sacrifices for you that you have forgotten or never acknowledged? Your parents who worked jobs they hated to provide for you. Teachers who stayed late to help you. Friends who supported you during difficult times. Strangers who showed you kindness when you needed it. And more uncomfortable, if you were horribly disfigured tomorrow while saving someone's life, how would you want to be treated? With pity and avoidance like Michael experienced, or with honor and gratitude like he eventually received? Finally, what are you doing with the life and opportunities others have sacrificed to give you? Are you paying forward the gifts you have received? Are you multiplying the good that was done for you? Michael Torres ran into a burning building and emerged a monster. But through the redemptive power of purpose and gratitude, he became something greater than he had been before, not just a hero who saved 3 children, but a catalyst for good that saved hundreds and inspired thousands. His scars tell a story of sacrifice. But they also tell a story of hope, that our wounds can heal, that our sacrifices can multiply, that our pain can have purpose, and that heroism is not one moment of courage but a lifetime of choosing to use our suffering to help others. That is the legacy of the scarred hero. That is a legacy worth any scar.